This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. Starting today's show is Blaine Stroble, Northeast District Forester with the Kansas Forest Service, as he discusses the Kansas Arbor Day Poster Contest. Blaine explains how teachers and students can get involved in the contest and how what can be learned is important to trees. Cassie Jones, professor in animal sciences and industry, and Chad Paulk, associate professor in feed and pet food science, continue the show as the pair converse about the value of biosecurity and animal health when it comes to milling facilities and how they're doing research to help others reduce accidental disease spread. That and more is coming up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Monday show talking about the Kansas Arbor Day Poster Contest with Northeast District Forester with the Kansas Forest Service, Blaine Stroble. Blaine, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Blaine, the theme for this year for the Kansas Arbor Day Poster Contest, Kansas trees are terrific in cities, towns, and communities, and Kansas usually considered a prairie state, so how are trees fantastic in Kansas?
While historically Kansas has been a very rural, open prairie state, we see trees every single day within our communities. And what the main goal of this poster contest is to help get kids and the younger generation aware of what benefits these trees provide in their communities. When they're walking around outside, they're experiencing the shade provided by these trees. All their water that comes into their schools and homes is all being filtered by these trees. So really one of the big things that we're trying to do is just, help these kids understand why these trees are beneficial and that it's more than just a big bush in the middle of the prairie. So yeah, that's really the main goal, is to get the kids involved and understand why these trees are so beneficial.
How does the Arbor Day Poster Contest help with teaching the kids about trees?
So the way we do this poster contest is we release a curriculum that hopefully these fifth grade educators across the state can use to provide some sort of activity that's pre-selected every year for these kids to get a better understanding of what these trees do. So different years have different activities with intent of showing a different benefit of trees. This year's theme is to go out and measure a tree and understand why it is the size that it is and the benefits that tree is going to provide from the size that it is. And so really what we're trying to do is allow these students to get this educational experience by following the curriculum, and then just kind of as a fun thing to do following that activity is to put together this Arbor Day poster contest where they could potentially get recognized as the district winner and then potentially even a state winner.
For educators, how was this curriculum developed?
We've pulled the curriculum from multiple different sources. We have people within our agency that kind of look at some different topics and different ideas and put things together that we can then modify however we need to kind of highlight certain areas or drop certain areas, really whatever we're trying to focus on for the year. And so each year we kind of change it a little bit to make it different for the educators. That way they're not doing the same thing over and over again. So we really just, like I said, pull it from different material to really just highlight what it is that we're trying to accomplish for that year. And then once that goes out, those teachers can modify it from there if they want to really put emphasis on what they would like.
This curriculum does cover a lot of important topics or requirements when it comes to subjects within school.
So it actually touches on the STEM program as well. So a lot of, your science and horticulture, it's more than just let's look at a tree and identify that it's got bark and leaves. It really can go even deeper and show as to, touching on the benefits of the tree rather than just saying, again, here's a big bush in the middle of the prairie. we're really trying to get these kids to get a better understanding of why they're so important, not necessarily the beauty of them. I mean, trees are gorgeous and we all love to look at them, but we're really wanting people to understand the why of why they're there and really try to get them to understand the benefits of why planting them and growing them are so important.
Who can participate in the Arbor Day poster contest?
All fifth grade students, anybody in Kansas, fifth grade students, homeschooled, public schools, any fifth grader in the state is eligible to participate, and we encourage it too. I think last year we had a pretty decent population from homeschools submit posters, which was kind of a new thing. We really haven't got to touch on that a lot, but in the last probably 8 months, we've had quite a bit of interest from the non-traditional schooling methods come in and want to learn more about trees and how we can help them. So any fifth grade student across the state is eligible, and we'd love to get posters from everybody.
And so only fifth grade students can submit a poster, but can any grade level really take the time to utilize this curriculum?
Absolutely. Just because it's targeted at fifth graders doesn't mean that third graders or second graders or anybody else couldn't do this. Especially in that fourth grade or under. I think the curriculum is easily modifiable, and so that these students can get exposure to it before they maybe hit that fifth grade mark, so they are aware of what to expect. And like I said, since we change the curriculum every year, it's not like fourth graders are going to be doing the same thing 2 years in a row. So I think it's a great opportunity for students of all ages to get involved and, do a poster contest of their own, even if it's not the big statewide fifth grade poster contest.
What does submission for this contest look like?
When we send out the curriculum, the teachers ideally would build it into their teaching curriculum, do the activity, and then spend some time completing these posters. And then from that, the community is going to actually take those posters that have been submitted to their tree board and pick a winner from that community. Those communities would then take that poster, submit it to their district forester, and then us at the state office with the Kansas Forest Service, we would then evaluate those posters, those 4 district posters, and pick the winner for the state.
For the people who maybe don't know who that person is they need to give the poster to, how can they find them?
Yeah, so we have some really great information on our website. If you go to the community page, there is a section where you can click on your county, and that would actually pull up who your district forester is for your location. From there, it would have their contact information, their phone number, and you're more than welcome to ask them for any questions on the poster contest. And if they're not able to help, they can point you in the right direction and give you the help that you need.
What does the winner get from the Kansas Arbor Day poster contest?
A really cool experience. The winner from the poster contest is able to travel to the Capitol building on Arbor Day and help plant a tree with the governor. They get a tree to plant at their school, and they're recognized at our Tree City USA annual recognition event. So it's pretty cool. It's a good opportunity for these students to kind of get out. Like I said, they get their picture taken with the governor. And, in the past, we've had some experiences for these kids that otherwise they may not have gotten. So it's a really good opportunity to get them out there and really get the opportunity to do something they may not have done before.
When is the deadline for getting these submitted?
So the deadline is February 7th, 2025. And like I said, those posters just need to be mailed out to the district forester, and they need to arrive by then. So we kind of try to tell people to try to get them submitted a little bit earlier than that, just so we have time to look them over and get things announced. And then shortly after then is when we would look at them and pick a winner.
And the winner does get recognized at the Tree City Recognition event. And what is Tree City USA, and what's that event?
Tree City USA is something that we promote a lot throughout the state. What it is just, it's brought on by the Arbor Day Foundation as well. And what it is a program to highlight communities that are really putting forth, good, strong efforts in their tree care. So there's 4 requirements that you have to meet. You have to have a tree board or department. You have to spend $2 per capita. So let's say you have 1,000 people in your community. You need to spend $2,000 on tree care, celebrate Arbor Day or have a proclamation, and you need to have a tree ordinance. So the requirements are pretty simple, but what it does is it really just, it lets us know and it lets everybody else know as they drive through your community that you care about your trees. And, it's a good opportunity to get your name out there. Like I said, do a recognition event every year. We hold some speakers, do an awards ceremony, and these communities that are recognized for Tree City are able to come talk to other communities. And, it's a really, really good social time for communities to figure out, what other struggles are going on. I think it's a really great opportunity because at this event, we'll have communities of 150 people and we'll have communities of 20,000 people. And 9 times out of 10, regardless of community size, most of these communities are fighting the same battles. And so it really gives these communities a chance to talk to each other and figure out, that they're not alone. So regardless of size, we have tree cities from, like I said, 150 people all the way up to 60,000, 70,000 people. So it's a really cool opportunity. You get some flags, you get some signs you can hang around town, and it's another thing brought on by the Arbor Day Foundation that we're happy to support and would love to get more involvement with.
If a listener does think maybe that Tree City USA is something for their community, how do they go about maybe getting more information or getting that process started?
So I would recommend jumping on our website again at kansasforests.org and going to that community page, finding your district forester and reaching out. There's 4 of us across the state, and we are happy to help facilitate that, give you the guidance, give you the guidelines, and help you understand where you're at in the process and how we can help get you the rest of the way. So we try to, we're happy to help anybody, and we'd love to get people involved any way we can. We're always looking to get more support and more people involved in this program. And yeah, we're happy to help anybody that's willing to reach out, and we'd love to get more people on board.
Blaine, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
That was Northeast District Forester with the Kansas Forest Service, Blaine Stroble. I will link the resources that he mentioned in today's show notes on agtoday.net. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show talking about animal health and biosecurity with Professor in Animal Sciences and Industry at K-State, Cassie Jones, and she is also joined by Associate Professor in Feed and Pet Food Science at Kansas State University, Chad Paulk. Cassie, Chad, thank you both so much for taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Wanting to talk about this animal health and biosecurity portion, what is some research you guys have been doing in that area?
We've been working really hard in the last couple of years in some really unique areas for K-State. Our team collectively pulls on the strengths of the facilities and the types of faculty that we have that are really unique to K-State as we look at trying to understand how do we keep animals healthy from farm all the way through the fork.
Yeah, so K-State does a really good job with their animal science program and thinking about disease spread. And the one thing that really sets us apart is we have the OH Cruise feed mill where we can do a lot of research. When you think about a feed distribution, it takes one common product and sends it to multiple locations, which could be a really serious spread of disease. And so we have the opportunity here to focus on how that is involved in biosecurity at the farm and potential spread of diseases.
What work have you been doing when it comes to what's happening maybe at the mill to going to those farms and operations?
Yeah, so probably 15 years ago, we first started here at K-State with the Cargill Feed Safety Research Center when PED hit the U.S. and looked at if viruses could actually survive in the feed or not. And Cassie actually helped lead that work before I got here. And ever since then, when I arrived, we kind of took it and ran with it and looked at how can we clean that mill up if it does get infected, and what's the likelihood of the animal getting sick if you have an infected product.
And that's what's really unique about K-State is that we have an animal science program that's so world-renowned, but then we simultaneously have expertise like our grain scientists as well as our diagnostic medicine and pathobiologists from the vet school. And so that's really unique to have on the same campus, much less with facilities that can facilitate that type of research. And so just to give you an idea, some of the things that we do broadly is we'll look at swine pathogens, but also pathogens like salmonella that can impact a lot of different species. What's the likelihood that they are contaminated in ingredients? What's the likelihood that that would survive in feed? What's the likelihood that that could potentially make an animal sick? So very similar to what we think about from the human food safety side, we're interested in a lot of that aspect, but in the world of animal feed safety.
What have you seen when you've looked into salmonella and animal feed safety?
Yeah, so one of the most recent projects that we just finished was trying to understand the mode of transmission. So sometimes when animals get sick, they can spread that disease through different vectors. And in this case, this was a little more animal-centric one because we worked with our Large Animal Research Center, the LARC, here at K-State, which is a biosafety level 2 facility. And we intentionally inoculated pigs with salmonella that was either aerosolized, so they were breathing it in, or it was contaminated in the water, or it was contaminated in the feed. And it was the first time that anyone had really tried to understand if level of salmonella as well as transmission method impacted whether those animals got sick or not. And one of the things that we really learned from that is that repeated exposure is really something that's quite harmful to animals. Probably not a surprise because like any toxin or anything that's dangerous, the more exposure you have to something, the more likely that animal is to get sick. But certainly it gives us some perspective as we think of the amount of toxin or the amount of pathogen that it takes to make an animal sick in a single dose versus how little it takes if that animal is exposed multiple times over a long period.
And so how does the work with pathogens and seeing how dangerous it could be play into what you're doing possibly in the mill, Chad?
Yes, so there's two different routes we can think about that. One, if we continue thinking about salmonella, that really plays into the pet food side of things. And we do have a pet food program within our department that does a lot of processing research as well, understanding how the extrusion process affects the pet food and things like that. And we can do that kind of research in our facility to see what temperatures we need to hit in order to make sure we decontaminate or get rid of that salmonella. The other thing is when we think about on the feed mill side of things, the human food side does a lot better job of keeping their facilities clean. We hadn't really worried about it traditionally on the feed side, and so you have a dusty environment that's really hard to clean up. Equipment's contained and different things like that. So what we have the capabilities to do is within our research center run different pieces of equipment and look at how can we sanitize this equipment to remove pathogens from the facility. And so we just finished a really big project that was funded by SHIC where we looked at different ways of flushing equipment, fumigating equipment, or just heating equipment up and how that removed pathogens from the facility. And so we found that formaldehyde works well, and also there's other potentials with chlorine dioxide fumigation and also heat up.
Is the work you're doing then hopefully going to spread within the industry?
Yes, so it's pretty much what we try to do is put together some different options that can be used and help train those individuals. The other thing we really do is a lot of outreach and education with our undergraduate students to try to understand what are the implications of using formaldehyde, how do you do it safely, how does the regulatory side influence how you can use that product, and making sure you use it effectively.
And this plays into a lot of our challenges across animal production today. You know, as we look at biosecurity, biosecurity is hard. And collectively, we've used biosecurity in some industries more than others, really based on what that industry is needed based on risk, right? And so something like the swine industry or the poultry industry typically has much higher biosecurity standards than a cow-calf facility. But it's important to everybody to understand the principles of what those biosecurity requirements are because anything can change tomorrow, right? Right now, we're actively trying to prevent African swine fever virus entry. We're trying to prevent things like foot and mouth disease entry. If any of those pathogens were to enter into the United States, very quickly our world would change. And so a lot of the research that we do helps underlay and create some recommendations so that when or if those terrible things happen, that we have some real practical considerations and recommendations that we can flip a switch and provide those practical options for producers at that point.
Cassie, you mentioned the African swine fever. Have you been doing some work with that?
Yeah, that's one of the advantages, again, of being at K-State. We've got the Biosecurity Research Institute at Pat Roberts Hall. And so one of the only facilities in the world where we can do pathogen-related research of this scale, especially where we would have access to feed scientists and a world-renowned diagnostic lab. And so all of those things have really come together in some research that we're working with in collaboration with Dr. Jürgen Richt. And so what we'll do in those studies is try to understand a lot of the things that we do with domestic pathogens with Chad, Salmonella, porcine epidemic diarrhea virus, PRRS, some of those viruses that we know are transmitted domestically. But what about these terrible ones that we hope to never have to have the answers for? A lot of that work that's been done on the ASF, or African swine fever virus side, is largely for us to better understand and prevent transmission or entry into the U.S. But it also, interestingly, has been picked up by an international audience as we've looked at and really helped some of our Vietnamese neighbors and some of our other global partners try to continue to produce pork in a way that results in safe products and healthy animals.
How have you seen the work you've been doing impact agricultural producers or the agriculture industry as a whole?
I think a good direct example, Cassie just kind of mentioned, and this is going to be our international ag partners, but we did an EPI study where we worked with our Vietnamese producers and monitored how ASF was in their production system, and then came in and implemented feed biosecurity procedures. And we watched how the number of positive samples pretty much went away, and we were able to improve their biosecurity where it wasn't an issue through the applied research we had done here at K-State, taking what we learned, working with that producer over in Vietnam and implementing some of those strategies and watching it actually reduce the viral load within their herd.
The other thing that we try to do is make sure that our audience and for the research itself is both producer related, but also that we're telling the story as needed to regulatory partners also. I'd say some of our biggest victories for producers across the board has been the fact that we don't have some regulations that were perhaps being discussed at various points in time because we were able to provide the science so that we could ensure that there were science-based solutions or science-based policy that was developed. Sometimes if you don't know the answer, does this cause this or is there risk here or there, that unless that gap of knowledge is filled, then we tend to create policy, especially in import, export, and in trade tariffs, that in order to prevent any potential risk from entering. Some of the things that we've learned is what is the likelihood of pathogens entering through feed or ingredients? How substantial is that risk and from which countries and in which types of ingredients? And what is our concern about salmonella transmission across the feed supply chain today, and what's the likelihood that impacts any of our domestic animals? Some of those things it's important for us to quantify so that science-based policy is developed when necessary, but also that it's not developed just because we don't have the information.
That was animal sciences and industry professor at K-State, Cassie Jones, and she was joined by feed and pet food science associate professor at K-State, Chad Paulk. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but when we come back, we'll once again be joined by Cassie and Chad as they conclude their conversation on animal health and biosecurity. You're tuned back into Agriculture Today, and we conclude our Monday show and conversation with Professor in Animal Sciences and Industry at K-State, Cassie Jones, and Associate Professor in Feed and Pet Food Science at K-State, Chad Paulk. Cassie, Chad, as we continue our conversation on animal health and biosecurity, what's the dream for your research moving forward?
To be honest, a lot of our research has really been driven based on need from the producers. And so it's hard for us to predict that moving forward because we try to be a combination of both proactive and reactive. A lot of our work, as Chad was describing, has a bit of epidemiology in practice where an outbreak will occur, a producer believes something is going on, or we have a research a partner in the international field who needs our help with some type of solution. And we're able to fill that gap and then do some some controlled research here at K-State's campus to make sure that the things that we're seeing in the field really are replicated and that really is true. And so as we look forward, I think a lot of the things that we've been doing, trying to prevent African swine fever virus entry, trying to understand things like domestic salmonella and E. coli transmission, those are things that I continue to see are really critical things for us to work on over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think more on a detailed level, too, when we think about us actually executing this work from a land-grant mission of research, education, and outreach. Myself and Cassie and our other collaborators like Dr. Gephardt, we have much more of a practical experience in working with the mill and working with the animal, and we really need more expertise on the basic science side of things. We have a lot of our scientists in the vet school work with pathogens within animals in the blood and transmission from one animal to the next, but there's not a lot of feed safety experts out there who are understanding how that type of matrix viruses survive in it and how to do the analytical procedures and things like that. So I think having someone who can focus on that expertise and really help grow our program would allow us to connect the basic science to the applied science and do even more than what we've been able to do in the past.
The other thing that I hope that we see over the next few years is that we know that the feed supply chain continues to be a gap in biosecurity, and that's been okay for the most part in most of our industries. But we need to continue to make progress clearing up and closing that gap, and also developing some protocols that we can quickly flip to and that are feasible so that we have some technologies that are just more realistic to implement. When we think of biosecurity in general, today nobody would ever go from one sow farm and then go to another one without showering in or having downtime. But it's pretty routine for a single truck to make a delivery to multiple swine facilities with different owners and different production systems and flows in any given day and back and forth to the mill. As we look at what risks there are and what types of practices that we need to look forward to in the future, we hope to never be in a situation where we have to be in containment or we have to go through decontamination of those trucks or of the feed mills. But the reality is, as we look at the global outlook, many of our trade partners have already had to make some of those hard decisions, and it's really impractical for that to be done in a scalable way. And so one of the things that I hope that we can make progress on in the future is making more practical recommendations for how to decontaminate, how to keep pathogens out of the feed supply chain, and if they do enter, how to keep from spreading them throughout the whole supply chain before it's too late.
Cassie, Chad, I appreciate you both taking the time to join us today.
Easy peasy.
Once again, that was Professor in Animal Sciences and Industry at Kansas State University, Cassie Jones, and she was joined by K-State Associate Professor in Feed and Pet Food Science, Chad Paulk. If you're looking to find more information about the Department of Grain Science and Industry here at K-State, you can do that by going to www.grains.k-state.edu. If you're wanting to find out more information about animal sciences and industry, you can do that by going to www.asi.k-state.edu. I, of course, will link both of those in today's show notes on agtoday.net. That's all we have for you today on Agriculture Today, but we'll be back with more for you tomorrow.